Hey all, Avros here, back with the next fight, the Lufenia for our newest character release, Queen from Final Fantasy Type 0. This Lufenia features a new boss, the Strong Beast, and they bring with them a very annoying attack pattern for the start of the fight that needs some creative problem solving to get past for a party like mine. Special thanks to Hirawin over on the Dissidia Subreddit for the idea for this team. So essentially, all three bosses will have their recast full at quest start, which is a multi-bravery hit into HP attack, that without some mitigation or bravery shields will hit for a lot of damage, and with 3 of these in a row, if the bosses don't end up with their attacks not being unsynchronized or going through all of them at the same time, is a death sentence. So you want to bring along someone that either has sort of bravery HP damage reduction and mitigation, or someone with bravery shielding and also HP mitigation to get through there. Taking these 3 hits just back to back without any of those, quest's over. You can't get past it, I don't think. So, after getting past this opening salvo and reducing their health to 79% HP, that is when the Lufenia orb will appear with a 20 count, and it will remain for the rest of the fight. It doesn't go away at any point during this fight, it's just there for the remainder after 79%. This orb is increased via a 3-turn delay to add 15 to the orb count, or via HP regeneration, not healing, but actually regeneration at the start of your turn, and this will add 1 to the orb count, essentially stalling the orb from decreasing at that point. Other mechanics of note, these bosses have a wide array of group and single target bravery plus HP attacks that hit quite hard, so this is something to be ready for if you're planning on having the bosses have many turns during this fight. They also have a stage buff that gets higher as their HP gets lower, increasing the now common bravery recovery / damage dealt effects that are being reduced in these Lufenia boss fights now. So the boss for this one start at a 30% reduction to bravery recovery and 70% reduction to bravery damage at the start of the fight, and when ferocious power increased appears, this will increase to a 40% reduction to recovery and 75% to damage, and when ferocious power further increased appears, it goes up to a 50% reduced recovery and 80% damage reduction. So these also include the usual suite of buffs increasing all base stats of the bosses, so something else just that will obviously reduce the damage dealing on top of that bravery recovery and damage reduction. Lastly, the bosses in this fight are weak to wind damage and can be affected by all debuffs, so if you want to bring along any units that inflict a lot of those debuffs, this is a great fight for that, as you can use those to increase your damage output against these bosses, or reduce their speed or turn rate, whatever you need to do to get through the fight. So the strategy for this fight was to get past the initial onslaught from the recasts using Porom with her HP damage reduction, as well as using her core unit abilities from Warrior of Light to get his bravery shield up, and this was used to try and unsync the recasts of the bosses so that you weren't hitting all 3 of them in a row and possibly dying to that one. I didn't actually manage to pull it off in this run. I did in a couple of other attempts that did fail, but in this one I got lucky via a couple of dodges on the party there, and Porom obviously having last stand made her live on 1 HP so that there wasn't any issue with getting through, and once I got past the initial onslaught of those 3 recasts, it was time to sort of move on with the fight and get onto the rest of the strategy. So once that was accomplished, it was time to heal up with Porom and then go into full damage mode and essentially race the orbs for the remainder of the fight. So after getting that healing done, I switched out Porom for Friend Cloud of Darkness and got Kurasame's LD buff up, as that was on core for his core units there, and made sure that core was also linked to Bartz, and got Friend Cloud of Darkness's burst effect up, and then went into Bartz's burst phase after using his LD core, which was Fujin, to get that wind enchant up on the entire party, and then just went through the usual sort of order of attacks for Bartz's burst phase there. After Bartz's massive 5 million damage burst phase, thanks to a lot of follow-up attacks from Core and Cloud of Darkness during that phase, the bosses ended up at around 50% HP on all 3 of them, and after taking a few more turns to get to Core's next turn in the turn order, I then used Summon and went all in on a Reaper's Gale into Reflorascere into Reaper's Gale combo for the duration of the Summon phase, dealing massive damage via his rainbow attacks on the Reaper's Gale, and the follow-up attacks from Cloud of Darkness's burst effect also contributed to the damage output there. This dealt massive damage with Cloud of Darkness taking the last turn of the Summon phase via their breaking of the bosses when they managed to gain some bravery at the end of it, making cause damage that he could have done with the rainbow kind of drop off in the last turn of that summon phase there. Once the summon phase was over, it was then a matter of sort of watching the orb counts, using Cloud of Darkness to get the lowest one back up via the tripper delay on her last turn before going away, and then cleaning up the remaining about 20-ish% on all three bosses of how much HP they had left there before the orb could explode at this point, because while this was going on, there wasn't really any of the boss turns in sight on the turn track until the very end when there was only one of them left, and Porom had come back into the fight. Overall, this was a fun, short 18-turn sort of romp through a Lufenia stage once that initial hurdle at the start of the fight right at the very beginning was cleared, and don't have much else to say, so on that note, thank you for watching. If you'd like any further assistance, want to discuss my strategy, ask any questions about how I set up this party and all the rest of it, please ask in the comments down below. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of the video.
責務を果たす魂ごと砕く口よ責務を果たすついてこれるか口よ責務を果たす魂ごと砕く口よ責務を果たすついてこれるか口よ責務を果たす魂ごと砕く口よ逃がさぬ風よ口よ責務を果たすついてこれるか口よ責務を果たす魂ごと砕く口よ責務を果たす人たちで切り落とす俺たけれ手を貸してやろう口よ準備よし責務を果たす口よ返す時が来た承知助け合いだ口よ責務を果たす強払いはしてやるさ沈んでもらう口よ責務を果たす成敗手を貸してやろう承知口よお役に立てて光栄です白き加護を黙ってなさい責務は果たす強払いはしてやるさ少
少しばかり問題ある。上々だ。